So.
Welcome to the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Chuck Conrad with a kickoff. Roy is a strong leg, end over end. Sanders takes it 1 yard deep to the end zone. Up the middle, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. He's at the 40. He's at 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 45, 40, 50, 10, 5, touchdown, Cowboys. Just like last year, a same story. Roll out.
Here's your host, Chris Houston.
Welcome back to the Heisman Trophy podcast. We have as our guest today, Navy quarterback Blake Horvath. The junior from Hilliard, Ohio, was on the show last year. He returns again this year. So far through 8 games, 926 yards rushing with 13 touchdowns. Has also passed for 1,143 yards and 7 touchdowns. Averages 10.7 yards per attempt, which is really good. He is the trigger man for the Drew Cronick offense, which is a really interesting scheme. And I think some of what they're doing might just be the next wave of college football offense. After Blake Horvath, we're going to talk to Stuart Mandel, the college football editor of theathletic.com. He wrote a really interesting piece about the coaching market and about how this coaching cycle is going to be a really interesting one. And I thought that it would be fun to kind of delve into the topic a bit. Some breaking news from the Heisman race. Ohio State has launched 2 Heisman Trophy campaigns, one for quarterback Julian Sayin and one for wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Smith came on the podcast back in week 2, and we will have Julian Sayin on the show next week. Of course, I've always been a big proponent of schools campaigning on behalf of their players. I think over the years, a lot of sports information directors have developed this weird aversion to publicity campaigns, or at least there's this overarching obsession with not wanting to be seen as pushing for a player. I don't know. For me, these campaigns are a chance for a PR guy to really make his mark. In another bit of Heisman news, the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta has unveiled a new specialty exhibit to honor the 90th anniversary of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. Among the highlights of the exhibit is a jersey from Yale's Clinton Frank, who won the Heisman in 1937, making his jersey the exhibit's oldest artifact from a Heisman-winning player. In addition to 9 replica helmets spanning 9 decades of Heisman winners, fans will also get to see unique campaign memorabilia such as Ty Detmer's tie, Byron Leftwich's bobblehead, and D'Angelo Williams' die-cast NASCAR toy. I used to play with that thing. So you see SIDs, you do a great Heisman campaign, you could end up in a museum. In this case, next to Joe Burrow's jersey, Bryce Young's helmet, Ron Dayne's cleats, and Tony Dorsett's shoulder pads, which are just some of the uniform pieces on display, as well as infographic posters detailing the origin and sculpting of the trophy, and an interactive kiosk exploring the impact of the trophy on college football. And finally, just a reminder, Heisman ballots go out on December 1st. They must be returned by December 8th. And on Saturday, December 13th, we'll name a new Heisman Trophy winner.
This is Archie Griffin, 1974, 1975's Heisman Trophy winner, and you're listening to the official Heisman podcast.
The Heisman is handed out every December, but the history of the trophy lives year-round at Heisman.com. Home to the most iconic trophy in sports, Heisman.com tells the story of all 90 of our winners and features news, bios, and statistics on all your favorite Heisman heroes. Heisman.com also highlights our Heisman humanitarians, the many charities supported by the Heisman Trust, and so much more. Make Heisman.com your first stop for all things Heisman. Blake Horvath, Navy quarterback, welcome back to the Heisman Trophy podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
Navy's coming off its first loss of the season after getting off to a 7-0 start, so I appreciate you still coming on to visit with us. It's been almost 48 hours now since the game with North Texas. Now that you've had some time to digest it, what are your main takeaways from that game, both on a personal level and as a team?
Yeah, I think overall, just too many mistakes offensively and too many little things execution-wise that, playing a good team, you're going to get beat anytime those things happen. And so, as a team, it's just all about bouncing back and making sure our foundation's strong and we can build off it. And, we've had a successful season up this point. And, there's no reason to lose what we've built up this point just because of one game. So just got to keep going and keep believing.
Yeah, you guys are still in great shape in the American Conference, but now you got to regroup as you get ready to travel to South Bend this weekend. This will be the 4th time in your career that Navy faces Notre Dame, but it's the first time in Notre Dame Stadium. First three were all neutral fields. What are you looking forward to the most about playing in such a storied and extremely hostile environment?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's definitely a storied place, and just like a lot of places all over the country. But I think just the prestige that goes along with Notre Dame and its campus and university, it's exciting. For all the legends that have played there, and then for myself to get to join them in that stadium. Um, I think it's pretty cool.
You're in year two of Drew Cronick's offense. We've seen your production continue to rise, both passing and rushing. The overall offensive yards per play has seen a big boost as well over last year. There are multiple concepts at play in this offense, but what is the core philosophy that makes it work so well?
I think the core philosophy is just selflessness. Everybody on the team, right? It's not about individual success. It's about shared team success. And there's not a single guy on our team who needs to have the ball or complains about not getting the ball. Right? It's guys just doing their job. They're 1/11th and one to contribute for the success of the team. And so just the amount of humble people we have on our offense and the amount of weapons that go along with it. Right? There's a lot of guys you got to account for, and so. Just everyone wanting to do their job and in order for the success of the team, I think is what contributes the most to our success.
Yeah. I'm curious how much of what you do in a given week is just running the basic playbook, going through the various options and reads available to you, and how much of it is something that you install specifically for an opponent.
Yeah, it's mixed up each week, right? Each defense is going to attack us differently, and so some weeks require more install and more different plays to be, to be effective. And then some weeks, you're sort of going against a defense that, is similar to our own defense. And, our offense doesn't have to change that much, right? It's just about executing and maybe making things look a little bit different. But those games come down to just execution, right? And no matter what it is. And so, it depends really on the game plan, who we're playing. But, we're very versatile in that sense.
Last year, your summer cruise was on the command ship Mount Whitney. We talked about that last time you were with the IT department. Did you take a summer cruise this year?
Yes, I did. Not with the ship this time, but went down to Quantico in the Marine Corps TBS, the basic school down there. Mm-hmm. And we spent time at what's called Leatherneck. And so we spent time, sort of just being immersed in sort of the Marine culture that they sort of get used to at the basic school there. And going through some things there. And so we did that as a team, all our entire senior class. So it was really cool to go down there and just have a good time with the guys and, sort of get to be immersed in that culture.
Yeah. What was that like being exposed to that Marine culture? Is there a lot of Fugan men jokes going on?
Oh, of course. Who ordered the code red, but I think overall it's just, it brought us a lot closer together, just understanding things. And the thing about, that atmosphere is guys who maybe, didn't get to contribute on the football field a ton, are great in the field and the Marine Corps aspect of things and like stepped up as leaders and different stuff. And so it was cool to sort of see that dynamic sort of, play out throughout our time there.
Yeah. What's something you learned from that experience as far as about the Marines or about how the Marines and the Navy work together?
Yeah, I think one biggest thing I learned is that land navigation is pretty hard, compass and map and tracking all that stuff out. We'd do that while we were down there, and it was pretty tough.
Yeah, it's not just as the crow flies, right? You have to figure
Absolutely.
out everything, all the terrain and all that. Last time we talked, though, you mentioned that you were seriously considering becoming a Navy pilot. Is that something that you're still considering? And when do you have to make that choice?
Absolutely. So as a senior, we've already made that choice. Sort of, we put in, I guess, a list of preferences of what we'd want to be, and then the Navy sort of matches that to their needs, and the Marine Corps as well, right? Their needs of what they need to fulfill certain roles, certain numbers, and so we figured that out in a little less than a month now. So it's probably about 20 some days. Now it's the end of November. We'll figure out what our service community will be, and then hopefully I did put pilot first, so hopefully we can get that.
Do you envision yourself flying off a carrier or hunting subs or in a chopper?
No idea. I've got some ideas, maybe a little bit of things I want to fly, but I'm just excited to fly, just in general, wherever it is. The training planes. Excited to fly it all.
Nice. You were recently named a finalist for the prestigious William Campbell Trophy, which honors the player with the best combination of academic and athletic achievement. Coach Newberry highlighted that achievement at a team meeting a couple weeks ago. What was your reaction to being included on this prestigious list?
It was a complete honor, truthfully. And, I know Scott Strassmeyer, our sports information director, he's been, vouching for me pretty hard for that award. So it was a surprise, to be, told that in front of the whole team. And, they sort of had a presentation and they put the picture of the award up on the screen. And I didn't even know what it looked like. So I didn't know that it was for me or that the meeting that we were having was for that. And so it was sort of funny once he said what it was, because I had known that I was a semifinalist, but then to be named finalist was, that you look at the guys who have won it before me and have won it just in general. It's a great honor to even be, a finalist with guys like that.
Yeah. The winner of that award will be announced December 9th at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, but I imagine you won't be able to make it for that one, as that is the week you get ready to play Army. It's been 10 years since the midshipmen have beaten Army in back-to-back seasons, so there's a chance to do that this year. Plus, you'll also be going for the Commander-in-Chief trophy for the second straight season. You led Navy to a 31-13 victory over Army last year. Explain to our viewers and listeners the kind of sensations and emotions you experience while playing and winning a game like that.
Absolutely. I think it's a game unlike anything else, unlike any other game we play or have played all season. There's a lot on the line, especially the CIC. That's our number one goal every season, right, is to beat Air Force and beat Army. And so, the seriousness of that trophy and that opportunity for us, it can't be overstated. And so it's just, we always say, right, throw the records out, no matter what it is. It comes down to execution, taking care of the ball, and staying calm, making good decisions. And so it's, quote unquote, like a culture war, right? We respect them, understand them 364 days of the year, what they do outside of football, right? But then, that one day, maybe in that 1 week, right, we're fully enemies. So it's that game's special for sure. And it was an honor to be a part of it for the first time last year.
What kind of fun activities take place between Army and Navy? Like, do you ever run into Army guys out and about? Not necessarily, obviously not in Annapolis, but, if you ever run into them, do they say anything to you about, from the Army perspective, and do you give something back, or does that happen a lot?
There's not a lot of interaction between us. It's West Point's still a good distance away. We have a transfer program with the academy. So Air Force and West Point both send cadets to the Naval Academy, and then we send midshipmen to their schools. So sometimes we'll see some of them. And I have a high school classmate who is at West Point currently and now at the Naval Academy. So, it's cool to sort of get their perspective and hear things and the little differences. You think all service academies are the same, but there's, little niche differences that we sort of all understand. So it's pretty cool.
Now, what's like a simple example of one of the differences between going to Naval Academy and going to West Point that you've heard?
Just one of the, it's like the Naval Academy, I know, is one of the only ones where it's like everybody is in the same building, right? I know West Point and Air Force, they have to split up, those sort of things. So it's sort of interesting to have every single midshipman at our school, housed in one singular building, right? I don't have to walk outside if I want to see anybody in the Naval Academy. So right. That's just sort of one interesting things. And it's sort of different from anywhere in the country, really, but.
That's interesting. You're finishing up your fourth season at the Academy. I know there's a possibility of playing another year due to the injury you suffered a couple years ago. If you had to give a percentage number to the likelihood of you returning, what do you think that number would be?
Probably 0. Just, there's a lot of young guys with opportunities coming up, and I'm excited for, whatever comes after this. So, there's, I know Air Force and Army have sort of done those types of things and in that, but I don't think it's a realistic possibility for me. And so, excited to whatever the Navy or after football brings me.
You ready to get to the fleet, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do some rapid fire questions before we go. You're obviously an outstanding student, hence the finalist for the William Campbell Trophy. What's been your favorite class at the Academy?
I really enjoyed my first introduction to programming with one of my favorite teachers at the Naval Academy, Major Martinez. He did a great job. And so it was more than just programming, right? It taught me a lot about just leadership and military life in general. And so it was a cool class that encompassed a lot of stuff.
Yeah. In the Navy, a lot of the systems they use, they're not exactly consumer systems. There's like special things made for the Navy. Is that the stuff you learn to code on? Are you learning to code on consumer things and the Navy stuff? How does that work?
Just for right now, it's just the consumer stuff mostly,
Uh-huh.
just different languages and stuff. And then if that's sort of the route, sort of whatever your job is needed in the Navy, then you'll learn more of that stuff once you graduate. At this point, still the basic sort of,
Yeah.
civilian, as very
Sure.
civilian stuff.
Are you like not allowed to use ChatGPT for your coding? Are you kind of like a custodian for like when if for what it produces, and then you can kind of fix it? How does that work with learning that kind of thing?
Depends, right? I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is, each class has a different policy on that stuff,
Mm.
right? And so, it doesn't help anybody to just generate a code and just say, hey, write this for me, do this. But at a certain point, right, you have your foundation of what you're writing and what you're programming, and maybe you're stuck at one sort of complex part. You want something to be a little bit, it's complex. You may not be able to do it with just simple steps. And so
Hmm.
you may have to go utilize that and try and find different ways. But overall, you got to use some problem solving, try and figure out yourself, try and debug it yourself. So it's pretty cool.
Right. What's a small tradition or ritual on the yard that outsiders never see but you love?
I think one of the past ones was just the other day. We have a Halloween dinner that we have every year, and so the whole brigade gets dressed up in costumes, and gets to our swim and dive team. All the upperclassmen dressed as Ronald McDonald, and then underclassmen dressed as Grimace, and so it's just like funny stuff like that. And then everyone some people like run through King Hall, and then they all sort of yell at them, throw stuff at them. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of one of the morale boosting events that we sort of have here. It brings everybody closer together.
Sure, sure. What's the best part about playing quarterback?
Um, I think just the pressure, the accountability, right? In the beginning, it can seem like a lot, but it's a privilege.
Hmm.
It's a privilege to have people know my name and to care about what I do on a football field. And so, honestly, to be able to be blessed with those things like that, it's helped me a lot and have helped me grow in different
Hmm.
ways. That wouldn't be available to me otherwise. And so, yeah, I think that's just the greatest blessing of all is right, the challenges that help you grow and get better.
I mean, you're playing a position that Roger Staubach once played, so I mean, it feels like that's a lot of prestige going forward, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he's an absolute legend. Nowhere near, nowhere near his statue, but always aiming to chase those things.
Right. Do you have any superstitions on or off the field?
We all in our position group, the quarterbacks and running backs, we always sit in the same spots for our pregame meal. We can't
Mm.
switch it up. And if anyone tries to, then they get yelled at.
If you had a free Saturday with zero obligations in Annapolis, what would you be doing?
I'd probably go grab a hot dog from Pips in downtown Annapolis, and then I would go maybe watch a movie, get some
Mm.
popcorn. Big popcorn guy.
Nice. What's a current rabbit hole that you've gone down, like a book or a podcast or a YouTube niche that you can't stop consuming?
Uh, I've always been on a Harry Potter kick, but it's sort of recycling now. So I'm watching them back through again.
Nice. What item do you always make sure goes in your suitcase on road trips?
Headphones, have to have headphones.
What are you listening to usually?
Depends. Watching stuff on if it's like a flight or a bus ride. Listening, it's either country music, maybe a little bit of pop, throwback stuff, anything like that.
All right. I think you might have already answered this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What's your favorite off campus spot for a quick bite or some quiet time?
Like I said, Pips is a great one downtown. Chicken Roost, another great downtown Annapolis spot. When and this the classic is just Chipotle. So
Nice. What's a talent you have that few people know about?
I can whistle pretty good.
You're like, can you like whistle a whole song, or do you just do little bits, little
I could probably. I like whistling to songs and stuff and tunes. Just while I'm studying or something.
Can you just give me a demonstration real quick?
I don't know. Sure. Now you put me on the spot.
Give me Anchors Away.
Okay, we'll try. So
All right. Pretty good. Pretty
it's
good.
okay.
All right.
It's okay.
All right, Blake, finally, where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
No idea. Hopefully, We'll see if I become a pilot, I would still be in the Navy 10 years from now. So, I guess at that point I'd be deciding if I want to stay in the Navy or get out. But, hopefully just enjoying whatever I'm doing. Happy family, happy life, and, watching some football, cheering on the Steelers and Pittsburgh Pirates.
Awesome. Well, Blake Horvath, we appreciate your time today. We wish you and your team the best of luck this Saturday and the rest of the season.
Thanks so much, Chris.
For the second time on the Heisman Trophy podcast, that was Blake Horvath, Navy quarterback. If you're just joining us for the first time, we'd appreciate it if you give us a like, a subscribe, positive review, some good comments, tell your family, tell your friends. Thanks for your support. Coming up after the break, Stu Mandel of The Athletic.
Hey guys, this is Barry Sanders, the 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, and you are listening to the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Did you know that the Heisman Trophy Trust has donated more than $20 million to a huge variety of charity-based groups via its Heisman Trophy Fund for Youth Development? That's right, the fund has helped countless charitable organizations that uses sports to engage underprivileged young people in educational activities. If you are part of an organization or know of one that would like to apply for funding, visit Heisman.com and click on the charities link at the top of the site. Stuart Mandel is the editor-in-chief of theathletic.com's college football coverage. Came on the show last year. Welcome back to the Heisman Trophy podcast, Stu.
Thanks, Chris.
You wrote a piece in The Athletic this week where you asked who will fill all these top-tier coaching jobs, and it got me to thinking about the coaching market and how for much of the last 20 years or so, we've seen this escalating arms race in college football, and to go with it, these ever-burgeoning coaching salaries. And now the question I have in my head is, are we seeing this coaching market finally turn into a bubble that is about to pop? What do you think?
It never does, though, right? You always think, we thought with COVID, okay, well, then they're going to have to start spending their money more wisely. Nope. There are actually several coaches that got fired and bought out in that cycle. And then, you would think all of these stories about huge buyouts and guaranteed contracts, Brian Kelly, James Franklin, would deter other people from doing the same. Nope. When Indiana did its new contract with Curt Cignetti, I believe it is 100% fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Matt Rule just got an extension from Nebraska, so that assures that his buyout is now $70 million. So I've yet to see this thing correct itself.
Fair enough. Now, but also it could be that they just haven't, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Like maybe the bubble is still inflating, but because I see it, you're talking about all these jobs that are available, and there's, like 3 arguably really elite jobs, and then there's a bunch of really good jobs elsewhere, like schools that might typically get a rising star. And it doesn't seem like the supply of coaches is there to meet the demand.
Yeah, that's correct. I think that with the number of Power 4 jobs, and by the way, they're all good Power 4 jobs in their own right. People might say, "Oh, UCLA is a disaster," but you're still in the Big Ten. Like, it's relative to where the coach is now. And there's going to be more. I would assume Wisconsin will open, and a few others. And then, of course, there's a domino effect. And no, there are not enough proven coaches out there. And I think what I brought up over and over again is the fact that Lane Kiffin has emerged as the number one most coveted guy in this market tells you something, because, yes, Lane Kiffin, very good coach, has brought Ole Miss to success they haven't really ever experienced in the history of that school. But at the same time, he hasn't taken them to the playoff yet. As we know, he was very publicly fired from 3 different coaching stops earlier in his career. So, and he's about to get a huge raise from somebody. Either he's going to get another job, or Ole Miss is going to have to pay up to keep him. So that should tell you, like, okay, well, if he's the number one guy on the list, who else is available out there? Now, if you can manage to not get caught up in hiring the biggest name, there's a lot of great group of five coaches out there. There's a lot of good FCS coaches. And that's where, if this cycle of huge buyouts is ever going to end, if somebody, for instance, wants to hire Ryan Silverfield from Memphis, I promise you he will come for a lot cheaper than, if you tried to hire Matt Rule away from Nebraska. You don't have to pay him $9 million a year. If you pay him $6 million a year, or if it's less of a guarantee, he will still come to your Power 4 job. But the agents, the Jimmy Sextons of the world, they do such a good job of outmaneuvering the schools and convincing them to give these crazy contracts.
That's a good point. It seems to me like there's as much uncertainty as I've ever seen it when it comes to determining who will be a good coaching hire. We've seen coaching stars who've thrived in the before times kind of struggle. Guys like Dabo Sweeney, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, Chip Kelly. These are guys that were like superstars, like before COVID, before all the big changes. And we've seen coaches who are good at managing programs to great success, like Ryan Day and Dan Lanning and Marcus Freeman. And we've seen a few superstars leave the profession, like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer, and some of that's just age and some of that's other reasons. But where is that group of up and coming coaches who are going to be this generation's superstars? Where are the new Sabans and the new Meyers? Like, we had this great kind of group of up and comers earlier in the like mid 2000 first decade of the century. And these guys really dominated the sport for the next 10, 15 years. Like, where is this group going to come from?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, I'm sure the next Nick Saban or whoever, Urban Meyer, is somebody's defensive coordinator right now. But how do you know? How do you know if a defensive coordinator is truly ready for that job or not?
Yeah.
One thing I would just say is, I think what we've seen over the last few years is obviously the sport has changed completely. It's almost a completely different sport than it was 4 years ago with the NIL and transfer portal, more parity. And the coaches who you've heard complain about it the most are the ones that are now have been fired or might soon get fired. I mean, Brian Kelly was a big complainer about it. Dabo is obviously a big complainer about it. He's struggling, and so on down the line. The guys who never, just maybe privately they felt that way, but they just embraced it. Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Kurt Cignetti is not of that younger generation, but he has used the transfer portal as well as anybody in terms of building his roster at Indiana.
Yeah.
So whoever that person is that you are saying is the next star is going to be somebody who embraces the way college football is today, rather than sitting around and complaining about how it used to be.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 decades of this century, we also saw a lot of radical changes in offensive football. And now there seems to be kind of a homogenization happening. Almost everyone runs some version of the same spread. And like the big innovative wrinkle right now is these teams adding extra tight ends and H-backs, kind of going back to some of the old stuff. It's like not really groundbreaking stuff. Like the college game used to be a font of creativity. And now, and I'm thinking maybe due to the huge influx of cash, there's more at stake. There's more risk aversion. And so they're looking for more game managers and program managers rather than coaches who will go out there and be more risky with all that investment going on. What do you think of that?
Yeah. No, it is probably not a great time right now for innovation in college football on the field. Maybe everybody's just so focused on off the field. But there's a few guys. I mean, I think what Navy is doing under Brian Newberry and their offensive coordinator, they've taken the triple option and turned it into something completely different. Triple option is still part of it. But, I mean, Navy passes the ball a lot now. And I'm talking like drop back passing.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch their offense. I think Willie Fritz, who's succeeded everywhere he's been and is Houston now, is very innovative. And there's other guys that fit that description as well. Yeah. But it does seem like, and it's a good point you raise, right? Like the days of like, well, we're going to hire Urban Meyer or Chip Kelly or somebody from their tree to come run their offense. Now it's more who's going to come in and get us the best portal class.
Yeah.
Right.
There are all kinds of changes happening, as we know, but what do you think about the idea that the old concept of this big time head football coach, this Olympian figure dominating a program, is kind of dying? That you kind of alluded to it earlier, that we're getting to a more technocratic money ball approach where you don't have to spend 12 million. You can spend 6 million, spend that money elsewhere, get a version of the same result. Is that something that could be a trend that develops as a result of all this churn that's going on?
I mean, a great cautionary tale right now is North Carolina because, it came out after the fact. Bubba Cunningham, the AD there, did not want to hire Bill Belichick. It wasn't even his search. These board of trustees members hijacked the search, and his plan was going to be to hire somebody like John Summerall, somebody like Jeff Monken at Army, a really good proven college coach who would come for a decent, modest salary, and they would take the money and spend it on the roster. And instead, they ended up with a coach who they're paying $10 million a year to, guaranteed, who is then saying, "Oh, we're going to go out and we're so good at evaluation. Like we won Super Bowls. We're so much better at evaluating people that we'll be able to get guys on the cheap." And I think they found out the hard way this first year that doesn't work.
Yeah, and of course the recent news about Louisiana Governor Landry butting into the LSU coaching hire process, inserting himself. I don't know how that's going to shake out. Maybe you have some better sources on what's really going on there, or if that's just a bunch of bluster. But it seems to me like it portends a potentially another unforeseen trend that could happen going
Well,
forward.
Louisiana is very unique in its history of governors meddling in LSU football. So I don't know that that's going to be a trend, but I think it's another example, much like the USC one that I just raised, where there's just no alignment. There's dysfunction in the leadership. And people want to win so badly in football, and I understand it. They want prestige for their university, but it takes more than just a great coach. It takes everybody from the president on down being in alignment. And LSU is the furthest thing from it. I mean, there's just a total leadership void there right now, and the governor says he's not going to be hiring the next coach. Okay, but the governor appoints the people on the board of supervisors who he says are going to hire the next coach.
Yeah.
So we wish them well.
Okay, well, just wait till Governor Tuberville hires the next Auburn coach in next year or whatever.
That's true. Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier the lower ranks of football. I'm kind of intrigued by it. I recently talked to Tony Anise, the head coach of Ferris State, and they've won 3 of the last 4 titles. They're just rolling down there in Division II. Every year they've got like six to 8 guys going to the FBS level and doing pretty well. Could that be a new area to mine that is also quite affordable? Like we mentioned earlier, why pay a big name coach $12 million for what amounts to nice packaging? Well, you can go get the generic product for much less instead of the brand name and use the money for something else.
I think that I wrote about this a couple of years ago, but if you were to look, the hit rate on, I mean, look, it's no perfect science, right? Nobody truly knows if a coach is going to succeed. But if you look at the hit rate for FCS coaches that moved up versus any other previous resume, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Ohio State hired Jim Tressel from FCS, and he won a national championship. Yeah. Chris Kleiman is doing pretty well at Kansas State, having come from North Dakota State. And then you've just got guys who have, I mean, Lance Leipold worked at Division III. Kurt Signetti worked at Division II and then FCS for a long time. Kalen DeBoer, NAIA. Kalen DeBoer at one point.
Yeah.
If you can win, you can win. And so I feel like it's actually a really smart play to go and get a really good FCS coach.
And you're looking at coaches who are used to penny pinching, who are used to doing more with less, and who don't approach everything with this, throw money at the situation, right?
And they have, I just think if you're going to get somebody to go to a Power 5 job, and it's such a big job that encompasses so many different things that have nothing to do, frankly, with X and O's, having somebody who has that experience is huge. Now, it's not lost on me that some of the head coaches of the best teams in the country right now were coordinators, right? Ryan Day was hired or promoted. Marcus Freeman was promoted. Those guys were, Dan Lanning was a DC. So it's not like that doesn't work too. I will say what a lot of those guys have in common is they took over programs that were kind of already doing pretty darn well, right?
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley when he took over Oklahoma. It's a lot harder when you're rebuilding a program somewhere.
And also it's
I think that's where
it's also a completely different situation than it was a few years ago, right? So we don't really have a track record outside of Signetti, who took a program from nothing and built it up in this environment. he's probably the only one to really show that level of success that you can do at at Indiana. It's like Ohio State. When the change is happening, some of these places were in better shape than others, and so with the easier transition. But like I feel like Indiana just shows the way for all these other mid-level. I don't want to say mid-level, but power schools that have a chance to just spend wisely and
It may turn out that Kurt Cignetti's a unicorn. He certainly is leading a resurgence like we've never seen. But, I think the lesson to be learned from Indiana is just hire the best coach. Don't worry about are they going to win the press conference? Though, ironically, he did end up winning the press conference with his Google line. But don't worry on getting the biggest name or getting somebody from the Nick Saban tree, although I guess technically he is. All the like kind of unimportant things that ADs often latch onto in the coaching search. Ties to the area, right? They have to be so anyway, the point is just hire the best coach. I mean, can you imagine if when LSU came open last time when they hired Brian Kelly, if they had said we're hiring Kurt Cignetti, oh boy, fans there would have been like, who? You're hiring the James Madison coach to come here? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, so they don't do it because they know what the reaction is going to be. And
the
sometimes that just guy is, they're risk averse, but sometimes that guy is the best guy for the job.
Yeah. Well, Stu Mandel of theathletic.com, editor-in-chief, great content over there on college football. You can find him at SL Mandel at Blue Sky. Thanks, Stu, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right, time to wrap things up. Special thanks to Navy SID Scott Strassmeyer. Big thanks to Blake Horvath. Good luck on Saturday against Notre Dame. Thanks to Stu Mandel over at theathletic.com. The top 4 in the initial college football playoff ranking: Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Next week, Mr. 80%, Ohio State quarterback Julian Sand. See you next week. The Heisman Trophy podcast streams every Wednesday during the college football season and is hosted, produced, edited, and engineered by Chris Houston. The pod is available on all streaming networks, including Spotify and Apple Music, and features video interviews and bonus content on YouTube and TikTok. We also have a Reddit community. Special shout out to Isaac Lowenkron, and big thanks to Rob Whalen, Tim Henning, and the Heisman Trust for their support. Reach out to us via email at pod@heisman.com for feedback and commentary.